Countries all over the world have national security laws, and it's universally recognized that citizens have a duty to safeguard their country's interests. Unfortunately, these principles have largely broken down in Hong Kong, and there is a lacuna where the relevant national security laws should be. Hong Kong was entrusted in 1997 under the Basic Law, which is Hong Kong's mini-constitution, and which was enacted by the National People's Congress in 1990, with enacting its own national security laws covering such things as sedition, subversion, secession, treason, and so on. But 23 years after the reunification, that still hasn't happened. And so there's obviously great concern about this elsewhere in the country, because it's an obligation which Hong Kong owes to the rest of the country. But this particular obligation hasn't been honoured, and that has been exploited by hostile forces. So this is obviously a matter of great concern. So even though Hong Kong was authorised by the National People's Congress to enact its own national security laws in Article 23 of the Basic Law, the issue of national security was never within Hong Kong's autonomy. It always remained a matter for the country as a whole. Because Hong Kong hasn't acted to, as it was required to do within 23 years, to enact the national security laws, this has created problems, and as a result of that, the National People's Congress has now decided to take action itself. And of course, as the National People's Congress is the ultimate organ of state authority in China, it has the authority to do exactly that under the Constitution of China. Jurisdictions all over the world do have national security laws. Hong Kong is now the only part of China, incredibly, which doesn't have any national security laws, and this has been taken advantage of by people who want to harm Hong Kong directly and harm China itself indirectly by using Hong Kong. We've seen since last June that there has been an escalation of extreme political style violence, which has threatened the stability of Hong Kong. It's sought to challenge the authority of the central authorities over Hong Kong, and it's also had an element of secessionism attached to it. Some of the violent protesters have made it quite clear that they want to have an independent Hong Kong. They want to sever Hong Kong from the rest of the country. In other words, and they have some foreign backing to do this, in other words, they want to go back to the 19th century when foreign powers were able to carve up China at will, and which left China very weakened. But what they have to understand is that secession will not be tolerated in China, that the territorial integrity of the country has to be protected, and that the people of Hong Kong have a duty to the rest of China to ensure that Hong Kong is not used as a base for anti-China activities, for subversion against the central authorities, or for promoting violent secessionism here on Hong Kong soil. We've seen some terrible atrocities over the last year. We've seen police officers being attacked with petrol bombs. We've seen people being killed and maimed, often because when their only crime is to have a different view to that of the protesters. We've seen the train stations being torched. We've seen many businesses being damaged and destroyed, causing a lot of people to lose their jobs. And we don't have all the laws that are necessary in order to combat these type of menaces, which is obviously very concerning. Clearly, we do have some criminal laws, but we don't have the full amount of laws that are necessary to deal with this type of terrorist-related activity. And what is very concerning as well is that even though there has been a lull in recent times, I'm sure that the extremists are only biding their time. Why do I say that? Well, in recent months, the police have made very large seizures of explosives, of handguns, of assault rifles, of bomb-making equipment. And I'm sure, I have no doubt, that this was being prepared in order to resume the urban warfare here in Hong Kong that we saw earlier on. But even though the police have made some significant seizures, this is probably only the tip of the iceberg, and there's still a lot of, I'm sure there is still a lot of weaponry out there. So it's absolutely vital that before the the war on society resumes again, that Hong Kong does have in place all the tools it requires in order to defend itself and to defend the country as a whole. I imagine the law will be fairly precise. It will indicate what the ingredients of the offence are, like other laws do in Hong Kong. And provided that is done, provided there is exactitude, in other words, then it will be clear what the elements of the offence are. And if the elements are clear, then it will help not only to deter potential criminals from committing that type of offence, whether it be subversion or secession or terrorist type activity, but it will also assist the law enforcers in identifying what they need to look for as a matter of evidence in order to bring the charges. It will assist the prosecutors because they will be able to tell whether the legal ingredients of the offence are satisfied, and it will also assist the courts in due course when the cases are tried because they will know exactly what the elements of the offence are and whether they've been proved. And remember as well that convictions will only occur where the guilt of the accused person has been satisfied beyond reasonable doubt. And that will be the test which is used in all other criminal cases. So legal processes, the usual legal processes which are applied to all other types of criminal offences, will be equally applied to these offences. If there are uncertainties or ambiguities, then I imagine they would be resolved in favour of the accused person. And that's why it's important that the law is precise and that it's clear and that it can be easily enforced. And I'm sure that the drafters are very much aware of that and they will be keeping these points in mind.